Hello, lovely soul, and welcome to One. Let's talk. If you're a Disney buff like me and you grew up watching Tarzan, Hercules, Aladdin, Alice in Wonderland, then you're going to enjoy this episode. But first, I realized I never introduced myself in these videos. So, hi, my name is Patil, and I want to help you take your power back by freeing your mind and healing your heart. So let's jump right into the video. How do you tame a monster? Think about it. We're going to get to this in a minute. In old Disney cartoons, the Disney classics, we always find this idea of good versus evil. This idea of good and evil is displayed so vividly. The divide is very obvious. The duality between right and wrong, good and bad, good versus evil, I should say, is quite clear. I get it. It makes for a good show, it's entertaining, and maybe even encourages little kids to be quote-unquote good. But I don't want to view it that way. That's too simplistic, it's very one-dimensional for me. So I want to give a different spin on the different Disney villains and tell you why they're not evil. Without further ado, let's get started. Now, these are my interpretations and they're based on the movies. I haven't actually read the novels or the books, so I'll be speaking on the movies. Starting with the famous Lion King. Brother, help me. And then you hear, long live the king. Come on, if you're a die-hard Lion King fan, then you absolutely know what scene I'm talking about. But let me ask you, why did Scar kill his own brother? To refresh your memory, we see in the movie that Scar and his pack of hyenas, they were not living in the Pride Lands. In fact, they were exiled from the Pride Lands, and they were left to their own devices. Everything was on them. Food, water, shelter, you name it. So in a way, it's like they were given the shorter end of the stick. Which is why we then see Scar come up with this well-thought-out plan to kill Mufasa, right? Eliminate Simba from the equation, and lead the hyenas back to the Pride Lands to make himself king. But again, the golden question, why did he do that? Why did he want to kill Mufasa? Here's another example. In Sleeping Beauty, we see Maleficent so insistent on killing an infant, right? But why? Going back to the story, Maleficent was exiled at the time of King Henry, and she was not invited to the christening of Princess Aurora. So, she puts a curse on the princess, where on her 16th birthday, she pricks her finger on the spindle of a spinning wheel and dies. Well, she doesn't actually die, she falls into a deep slumber. But the question remains, why want to kill an infant? Our third example is The Little Mermaid, and of course, the legendary sea witch, Ursula. Going back to the movie, we see Ursula tracking Ariel's every move. It's like she's spying on Ariel constantly all the time. Why? Why did she want to use Ariel as bait to get to King Triton? Well, her story was no different. She was also kicked out of King Triton's kingdom, and she wanted to be the ruler of the ocean by frying the bigger fish, aka the king, as she so poetically put it. Do you notice a pattern here? Do you see what's happening so far? Because I'm going to speak on that in just a minute. And the last movie that I want to look at is, drumroll please, da-da-da-da, Hercules. Hercules, of course. Hades, Lord of the Underworld. Question for you. Why was Hades determined to kill Hercules and dethrone Zeus? What of his backstory? Now, in the Disney movie version, we see Hades banished from Mount Olympus and sent to the underworld by Zeus. Because in mythology, you're going to find a different version of this story. There's this one version that states that this was how creation, or the task of creation, was divided between these two gods. Actually, among three gods, I should say. Zeus got the sky, Poseidon the sea, and Hades received the underworld. But in the movie version, we see Hades wanting to kill Hercules by first making him mortal, because you cannot kill a god. And then he planned to unleash the Titans when in 18 years all the planets align and, basically the stars give him the green light, so that he can dethrone Zeus and take over Mount Olympus. Again, why? There are so many examples, by the way, and they don't just apply to Disney. Here are some other examples, and try to connect the dots yourself. Why did Voldemort want to kill Harry Potter? We see this in all 8 movies. He was so determined and so focused on just putting an end to this boy. Why? Here's another big one. Why was the Joker in The Dark Knight so hell-bent on spreading chaos in Gotham? He just wanted to watch the whole world burn. He didn't care about anything. He didn't care about the money. He didn't care about status. He just wanted to spread fear and chaos. What about in Thor? We always see Loki constantly fighting with his brother. They're in constant rivalry with each other. What about in Gladiator? Why do we see Commodus not only murder his own father, but also want to kill Maximus? And the list goes on. Like I said, so many examples. Now, I think we can all unanimously agree that these actions were not the best actions, right? And they're inexcusable. They cannot be justified in any way. Because after all, these actions do go against the righteous laws of nature. They go against the harmonies of nature. They go against the golden rule. Treat others the way you want to be treated yourself. I get that. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. Let's scratch the surface and dig deeper. So let's go back to Scar from Lion King, Maleficent from Sleeping Beauty, Ursula from The Little Mermaid, and Hades from Hercules. What do you notice? These villains have a couple of things in common. First of all, they were all exiled. They were banished one way or another from their respective homes. Scar was banished from the Pride Lands. Maleficent from King Henry's kingdom. I'm not really sure what that kingdom was called, so if you know, you can just type it out in the comments if you want. Ursula from King Trident's kingdom, and Hades from Mount Olympus. Second, they all wanted revenge. They all chose to spend their energy by plotting revenge, by taking some kind of physical action that was drastic and desperate. We see Scar killing Mufasa, Maleficent putting a curse on Princess Aurora, Ursula spying on Ariel and using her as bait to get to the king, and Hades wanting to kill Hercules and unleashing the Titans to get to Zeus. Finally, the third thing that they all have in common is that all of these villains felt left out. They were all abandoned. They felt hurt. They felt neglected. And the most important thing, they felt unloved, which is literally at the core of all of these emotions. Now, can you imagine what would have happened if these villains were actually invited to these places? If they were never kicked out to begin with? If they were equally loved, respected, and valued? Now, obviously, we would not have had stories or movies for that matter. But imagine this force, the most powerful, expansive force in the world, love, which has the power to mend broken hearts, heal traumas, cure illnesses, perform miracles, which has the power to do all kinds of incredible, impossible things. Can you imagine what its lack can do? And many of us go through life the exact same way. we abandon and neglect certain parts within ourselves. We only reward the ones that, quote unquote, do well, and we villainize, punish, and cast aside those that don't. Because hey, it's so easy to love the parts of us that are easy to love, that we've been taught to love. The parts of us that abide by the rules, that are accepted by our parents, by society, by the world. But what about those parts that are a little wacky? The parts that feel shame. The parts that are still bitter and angry or feel wrong for whatever reason. Or maybe even the parts of us that don't fit this good girl or nice guy narrative. What about those parts? It's going to be different for every person. But to help you get started, here are some telltale signs that you have abandoned parts within yourself, and you have chosen to give them conditional love. You're either going to fall on the hyper end or the hypo end of the spectrum. Let me explain. Some of you may find yourself overworking, overdoing. You're always doing more, you're always chasing, you're always trying to be more, you're always trying to have more. If that is you, if that is your case, then you are on the hyper end of the scale. Now, that's not to say that ambition is bad. There's nothing wrong with ambition. But usually, overdoing something means that you're not content with where you are in the here and now. You don't feel good enough in this moment, and you're trying to run away from this pain that you're experiencing either consciously or at a subconscious level. So you're in this go, go, go energy. That's the hyper end of the spectrum. Others of you are going to find yourselves in the hypo end of the spectrum, where you feel very low on energy all the time, very melodramatic. You find yourself having this defeatist, poor me, I want to give up kind of attitude. That is you being on the hypo end. Here's another sign. Being a perfectionist. Oh my goodness, it's a big one. That used to be me for a big chunk of my life. I used to be a perfectionist. And it's a killer. How do you know if you're a perfectionist? Well, do you hold yourself to exceptionally high standards? Do you judge yourself for the smallest mistake you make? Are you hard on yourself for not getting the outcome that you want? Do you compare yourself to other people? You compare, let's say, your money or your financial situation to other people's financial situation? Or do you compare your journey to other people's journey? Or your relationships to other people's relationships? And let's be real, do you feel jealous or insecure or triggered or annoyed by what other people have? Doesn't have to be something material. It could be that they have love or inner peace. These are just some examples that show you that there is a part or there are parts within yourself that feel abandoned and they're trying to compensate for it. Now, mind you, these parts are not broken. You can listen to my second episode, I believe. It's titled, You Are Not Broken, for a more complete understanding. I'll link it in the description box. But these are signs that you are just being stingy with your own self-love. You're being very conditional. See, this is what happens to these parts. They feel unseen and they feel abandoned by you. And the only way that they can actually get your attention is by going to extremes, either hyper or hypo. Just like those Disney villains went to extreme measures by plotting revenge and inflicting pain on others. In reality, they're just projecting their own pain. Their pain of being abandoned and being unloved. So ask yourself, in what areas of my life am I not loving myself? Where have I abandoned myself? In what area? How am I being conditional with my own self-love? How can I show these parts unconditional love? In what ways can I consciously start loving myself today? Can you give yourself permission to love yourself unconditionally? To start loving yourself consciously? Can you do that? Thank you for listening and for holding space. I really wanted to touch on this and highlight the importance of love, and especially self-love. So if you need my help, you want to take your power back by freeing your mind and healing your heart, then you can sign up for coaching with me. You have 3 different packages to choose from, should you choose to. You have email coaching with me. This is a package where you get to send me an unlimited number of emails for a month, because I know that some people best express themselves in writing. You can have phone calls with me once a week or twice a week. These are more interactive sessions over Zoom. And you can even sign up for a singular session with me. The details will be on the website, links in the description box below, and I'm also going to put my email there in case you have any questions around any of this. Like I say in all my episodes, these are just my thoughts, practices that have worked for me, for the people that I love, and for the clients that I've worked with. I know they work. So if they resonate with you, great. They're your messages. If not, let them go with love. Circling back to that question that I asked you in the beginning, how do you tame a monster? You don't. You just love it. As always, you are in it, but you've already won. Till next time.